Okay, and we are officially recording. Miss Davis is not here this morning. She's dealing with a personal matter. But today we do have the counselors. They are going to do a follow-up presentation based off last night's 9th through 11th grade information night. And I am going to go ahead and pass it over to Miss Iseed. Margaret.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So yesterday we met with everyone and went over our presentation. So today we will be giving you the highlights of that presentation and then be answering any questions that you may still have. So welcome, everybody. So this is what we reviewed last night. We went over school contacts, main people that are important for you to contact, such as our community, parent community involvement specialist, our athletic director, front office staff, and other people. Parent involvement, monitoring grades and grading periods, graduation and age requirements, testing updates, SVCTE, post-secondary planning and education systems, course planning, tips for success, and then any of our upcoming events. So if you are new to Piedmont, you probably are not familiar with all the counselors. So just to review, Miss Miller Cody has the first part of the alphabet. So she has last names. So we are all divided by last names. So because of that, we are able to follow students from the start until the end, which is nice. Some schools do grade levels. So every year they have a different counselor. So it's kind of nice that we get to follow them throughout their high school journey. So starting with the first part of the alphabet, Miss Miller Cody has A through DR. Miss Shootman has last names DU through LE, first name K. Miss Nguyen has LE through L. Last name LE, first letter L through Nguyen, first letter J. Miss Iseed, who is with us today, has Nguyen through first letter, oh man, this is confusing. First letter K through SH, and then myself, Ms. Ortiz, has, I have SI through Z, so I have the last part of the alphabet. So some ways that you can support students. I know they're in high school, they're supposed to be a little more independent, but sometimes they still need that little guidance and monitoring especially as freshmen, they're still trying to figure it out. Sometimes by sophomore year, they tend to do a little better, but they still need that parental involvement and support. So we have Canvas, which is used for assignments, announcements, and grades and teacher communication. So that is something that was introduced last year, and it's a new system. We also have Infinite Campus, which we have been using for a while now, which has also assignments, their schedule, their grades. You can see their GPA there. All right, as well as attendance. So some teachers, unfortunately, use Canvas, some use Infinite Campus. So I know it's frustrating as a parent because then you don't have just one platform that you can use. Unfortunately, you do have to check both because like I said, some teachers use one, some use the other. And then Google Classroom, that's not for grade monitoring, but I know some teachers usually will add parents like as a viewer to then be able to get the summaries in the email about the assignments that students are working on, but it is not a grade book. Grade books would be strictly on through Canvas and Infinite Campus. Next slide. So if you're concerned about your student grades, so we'll be talking about their grading periods. The first one is closing this Friday. We really encourage you to be communicating with the teacher and with your student because ultimately they'll be able to let you know if they're struggling or not. Sometimes they don't say anything until it's too late. And then, we could have intervened earlier. And then sometimes, unfortunately, they think they can handle it and then they wait too long and then they're way above their head. So sometimes parents will come to us to talk about grades, but really the conversation needs to be happening with the student and with the teacher because they're the ones that are there. They're the ones that can give you direct feedback on your students' performance and strengths and areas of growth. So we encourage you and your student to talk to your teacher, communicate with them through email. Some teachers have extra support sessions either after school, before school, so really taking advantage of that. And that way you have a clear understanding of what is going on in the class. Maybe it's just that they're not really organized with their work and not turning in work on time. And then it helps your student too to build that self-advocacy skills, but they will need as a skill lifelong. So it's important to communicate. I always tell students, if you don't let your teacher know, your teacher will just think that you aren't interested in your grade. But if you let them know that you had like maybe a basketball game or something, if you're involved in sports, that's why you couldn't turn in the work, they will work with you, but they need to know. If they don't know, they don't know. You can't blame them for not knowing. Parents, like I said, just attending their presentations, reviewing the work with your students, making sure they're turning work in on time. I think that's one where a lot of students struggle, is keeping up with the work and turning it in on time. So helping them with just monitoring completion of work would be very helpful, and then emailing the teacher directly if you have any concerns or questions regarding their grade. So next slide. Like I said, the first grading period is this Friday. It's closing this Friday, and then you should receive grades about a week after that. Our second one is in November, and then our third one is in December 21st. So that third one is the final first semester grade. So the first grading period coming up, and then the second one are progress grades. So obviously they do count. They're showing you the progress, but students who sometimes have like an F or a D have an opportunity to catch up, turn work in, talk to their teachers to develop a plan so that they can improve their grade to a C or higher. But the final grade that will go on their transcript is at December 21st grade. Same thing for second semester. Our next one is, or the first one for that semester is February 16th, followed by April 12th. And then the last one, which is that semester grade, is May 30th. So our graduation requirements. For high school graduation, all students need to have 4 years of English, 3 years of social science, which typically starts sophomore year with world history, junior year US history, and then senior year they do government and economics. Math, 2 years. We always recommend that they do more though. Science, they need 2 years, a biological science and a physical science. And then there's a little bit of confusion about this one, but they need either a fine art or a world language. So they only need 1 year of that. So if they took, let's say, Spanish or Vietnamese their freshman year, they would have fulfilled that requirement. 2 years of PE, and then anything, so usually it's 80 elective credits. So elective credits are pretty easy to fulfill. Usually it's anything that they do extra. So if they take an extra year of math, an extra year of science, an extra year of language or art, or any of the other college prep classes such as psychology, sociology, ethnic studies, anything like that, all counts. Student aid, PE fitness, PE individual activities, anything like that. So it's just basically anything that they take extra. So they're pretty easy to meet. So 220 credits is what is the necessary amount in order to receive a diploma. A D is a passing grade. However, sometimes, especially for like language or math, C's are often required in order to pass on to the second grade or second level. For example, if they got a D in Spanish, sometimes it's advisable that they retake that language class.
All right. So something else that we discussed last night, and just for families to kind of be aware of, is that we do have a partnership. The Eastside Union High School District has a partnership with a program called SVCTE, and that stands for Silicon Valley Career Technical Education. And that's a program that is free to our students, and it's open to 11th and 12th graders. So our current 10th and 11th graders are able to apply for the next school year. And the way that the program works is that students spend half of their time here at school at Piedmont Hills and the other half of their time on the SVCTE campus. And this is a hands-on technical career education program. So they have a lot of different programs. I've also included the link here. However, if your student is interested in a career technical education program like this, I would really encourage your student to come to our information workshop that will be held in January of 2024. And again, that application period will be from the day of that opening or that information session through February. And that will basically be for the 24-25 school year. So a current 10th grader, a current 10th grader and 11th grader will be able to apply for next school year. So something to just keep in mind if that is of interest to you. That is something that we do offer for our students, and it is free. I am not sure what's happening on my computer. I'm sorry, everybody. So the next slide here, and information that we talked about last night, is about the systems of higher education. So we went through each of these kind of systems and talked a little bit about the requirements, specifically GPA requirements, A through G requirements, and application requirements, and then also just encouraged families to talk to their students about these types of institutions and programming, so that when it is time for the application process, which is typically senior year, you all are prepared for this. So we are going to share the slides with you guys here shortly, so you can look through the specific details about each of these systems. But what we talked about last night was essentially the differences between some of our career technical education type programs, our California Community College system, as well as our CSU and UC systems, both of which are the 4-year public institutions in the state of California. And we talked a little bit about private colleges as well. And something to keep in mind is that private colleges each do have individual application requirements. So it is important, if your student is interested in a private college, to do a little bit of research about that specific institution, because they do vary. Something else we discussed last night was about the GPA, or grade point average, and the way that this is calculated. So when looking at a GPA, the way that it's calculated is that all courses in an unweighted GPA, which is what is listed on our transcripts, all courses receive the same point value. So essentially an A is going to count for 4 points, a B will count for 3 points, and so on. So when you take a look at your students' grades at the end of a semester, you can kind of take a look and see how many of each of those letter grades they received, and then you would associate the number of points to that letter grade, add them all up, and divide by how many classes they were in, most likely 6, and that would get you a GPA. And again, this is an unweighted GPA. Colleges will sometimes take into consideration a weighted GPA, which will essentially give an extra bump in the GPA, 1 more point, for a letter grade of A, B, or C, specifically in an AP or advanced placement course. So for example, if a student is enrolled in 6 classes, one of which is AP Spanish language, for example, and they receive an A in that class, they will receive 5 points for that A, versus all of their other courses would be kind of what we're looking at here on the left, which is an unweighted GPA. So something to keep in mind, and again, when looking at a CSU or UC, they will take into consideration the student's 10th through 12th grade GPA, and that's a weighted GPA. So at the time of application, they wouldn't have their 12th grade grades, of course, because that is in the fall of their senior year. So they would basically be looking at a grade 10 and 11 GPA when submitting an application to a CSU or UC in the fall of their senior year. So I hope that's helpful. And something to just look out for that is upcoming. I know you all received a communication from the district in the spring that we are moving towards the California College Guidance Initiative. And this is essentially a partnership program with the state of California, where we have essentially partnered with them in order to create a more developed and well-informed college and career plan. So it's basically a support service that has a lot of different tools, such as a 4-year academic planner, A through G college subject requirements. It shows you kind of what courses that you should be taking. There is a link to the college applications as well as financial aid applications. There is career exploration and personality assessments and quizzes and scholarship resources within this tool. And each student will have a username and password. And this is coming shortly. They are still working on it at the district level because they are uploading information for each student, so that they will be able to essentially, like I mentioned, link that later to their college applications. So it will also be able to kind of recognize what your students are enrolled in and show them kind of where they're at in terms of their A through G completion as well. So it's a really, really cool tool. And the state is moving towards every public high school in the state to utilize this tool. And it's again, going to help definitely with 4-year academic planning for all of our students. And so as soon as it is released, this is something that we will be working with students on every time we go into the classroom to present. So there will be a different assessment or program that we will be working with your students on. And we also discussed upcoming events. Of course, we are right now on the Zoom with the principal. Something to also keep in mind is that East Side College Night, which is upcoming on September 18th. That is physically in at the Independence campus from 5 to 8. It is really a great opportunity, and it's for all grade levels. There is a bunch of presentations as well as a college fair. So we think that this would be definitely helpful for students to see. We will be also going into the classrooms for 9th, 10th, and 11th graders on these dates here, October 10th for freshmen, October 13th for sophomores, and October 16th for juniors. So all students will see us in the next few weeks right after the fall break. And we will be going over some information for them to be aware of. Grade level specific information. And something else to consider if you are interested in learning more about some of our colleges across the nation is the NACAC virtual college fairs. There was one that just happened on September 10th. However, there are 2 additional ones, and they do have a partnership with a lot of colleges across the United States. So highly recommend checking out these fairs as well. All of our presentations, including this one here, the entire presentation, I know this is just a highlights, is linked on our website, and that is linked here. And then something else to just keep in mind or put on your radar is that there will be a scheduling night. I know it's quite early, but it will be held on December 4th, and that will basically provide you with information about scheduling and AP class information. So that would basically allow for you to get more information about the courses that we'll offer next year. I know it's really early to think about like the following 24-25 school year, but it is a fairly long process for students. So that's why we are getting the information out to you all in December. And then we actually do host college visits at Piedmont Hills, and that's open to all students. So that is also linked here as well. And I guess now we'll kind of open it up for any like questions that you all may have. We'll do our best to try to answer them. And I'm not sharing my screen anymore, am I? Or I am. Okay, let me stop this. Okay, cool. So if anybody had any questions, I think they may have come up in the chat. I just couldn't see them because I was sharing my screen.
Yeah, somebody asked if I answered some already in the chat, and then somebody was asking if joining SBCTE will help a little with the college application.
So many of the programs through SBCTE are also considered to be A through G approved, which means that they will count towards that college application process. So like it can be included in their college application as courses that they've taken. And what's really great about SBCTE as well is that some of their programs specifically are actually partnership programs with some of the local community colleges as well. So they might even get like dual enrollment college credit. So not only will some of the programs give you A through G like high school credit, they'll all give high school graduation credit. Some of them give A through G college credit, and then some of them even give specifically college actual credits from a community college. So yes, if your student is interested in a particular program and that's something that they're planning to continue their education in, like that would look pretty great on a college application, that they're already starting that process early and getting involved in a career technical education program in that field.
Someone was asking if we could explain the weighted and unweighted GPA. So we use the unweighted, which means everybody gets starting with A, the highest point you can get for an A is 4, and then B is 3, 2, 1, and then an F is a 0. The weighted GPA is something that colleges will often look at in order to give students a boost in GPA for classes that they have taken and have passed, AP classes that is, where they will, for example, now an A is worth 5 points instead of 4, a B is worth 4 points instead of 3, and so forth. And so that's how a lot of students, I don't know if you've heard a lot of students who end up with a 4.25 GPA. It's because they took AP classes and then were given that extra boost in GPA because of the classes that they took. And so colleges use that. Like I said, we don't use it, but there is a tool, I'll add it in the chat, where students can calculate that on their own. I'll put in the chat in just a minute.
And then one of them was, do you guys give a presentation to the 11th and 12th grade for SBCTE?
Yeah, so the presentation is in January, and it's open to current 10th and 11th graders for the following school year. So basically, like I said, the program is open to 11th and 12th graders, so they have to apply in their 10th and 11th grade year. So the presentation, I will send out like more specific details in the next couple of months, but it is already scheduled. It's on January. Sorry, hold on. Let me tell you. Give me 1 second. On January 18th, immediately after school. So it is a Thursday, so all students can come. It'll be in the library. It's already scheduled, and it's open to all students in grade 10 and 11, and the person will be there to provide the information about the program. And then immediately after that presentation is when the application process will begin for the SBCT program for the 24-25 school year. So I hope that makes sense.
Yes. What is the purpose of one-on-one with students in January, February when planning their schedule of AP classes for the following year? Is this to evaluate whether a student is ready for the coursework, or hold on, it got away from me. Where'd it go? For the coursework, or did you catch the first half of that, Margaret?
Yeah, I got it. So
Okay.
the purpose of that meeting is essentially a 4-year planning meeting, and it's basically to talk the student with, obviously we have their transcript in front of us and we kind of go through graduation requirements, of course, and then the students' plans, and then the 4-year plan, of course, is not final, but the courses for the next school year, that is really kind of the time where they are selecting their classes. And then after that initial meeting with the counselor, they will also have an opportunity to make a change beyond that. And then at that point, then the schedule requests are final. So we do have that process fairly early on for the next school year. But there is an opportunity even after the meeting with us to make changes. And we also have like a presentation before that with all students where we go over all of the courses that we offer and other information about like 4-year plans and A through G and graduation requirements and all of that. So they will see that before the individual meeting. We'll give them that 4-year plan paperwork, and then students will meet with us individually to then actually create that 4-year plan and then or update that 4-year plan for many of them, because we've already been doing this with the majority of our students, unless your student is a freshman or new, and then essentially pick the classes for the following year. So I hope that answered your question.
Does AP Biology, which is 2 class, count as taking 2 AP classes?
No, you're only getting the AP credit for the class, not the lab.
Is the SBCT info available to parents as well as along with the students? In short, like, will there be a parent presentation?
It's a student presentation, but I had a few parents come last year, so that's not an issue. As long as there's space, y'all can definitely come to the presentation as well. It's again immediately after school on that Thursday that I mentioned in January the 18th.
Is a SBCTE class a 3-hour class? How many credits do they get for that 3-hour class?
15 per semester. So because they can only take 3 classes here, it's essentially counting as the other 3 classes that they are taking, because we still want them to be on track for graduation. And it is a 3-hour class. So like it is taking up that time. That's how they're able to get that amount of credits for it.
And this one I'm not sure of. I heard the top 9% of the class will be guaranteed a spot in UCs. How and when can we know our kids' ranking, close to graduation, or on the time when our kids apply for colleges?
So the top 9%, it's called ELC, eligibility in the local context. It is a UC program. Essentially, all students that are within the top 9% of the class are guaranteed a spot at a UC. That doesn't mean it's a UC that they apply for. That doesn't mean it's a specific major that they applied into. What it means is, let's say your kid was in the top 9% and they applied to several UCs and they didn't get accepted to any of them. That would mean that they would have to be then offered admissions to a University of California. Again, it could be Riverside or Merced. That's typically what I've seen in the past for students in this situation, but it would be if you didn't get into another UC campus. You would have had to have applied to a UC campus and then not gotten in, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how that program works. And I think that you wouldn't know, because it's based on obviously all of their grades from 9 through 11. So you wouldn't know until senior year. And I'd have to find out off the top of my head. If it's based on GPA, so it's based on a weighted GPA.
Okay. And it looks like we got the answer for AP courses taken in junior or senior year. For example, physics. So sophomores can take chemistry.
Yep,
So you're
sophomores will take
taking junior
chemistry.
year. Okay. And then most of the counseling presentations, if not all, are recorded. So the SBCTE presentation, will that be, since it's in person?
So no, however, I will send out the slides afterwards, and students are still available, like able to apply regardless. The information will go out, but it will go out first to the students that were there, and then I'll send it out immediately after that. So the application process opens up during the presentation, and then everybody will receive a communication about it the next day. I would really recommend that you come to the meeting though, because it's not me that's talking, it's a representative from SBCTE who will provide some pretty detailed information about the program, expectations, application requirements, things along those lines that I think coming from them, it's a lot more helpful for the student to really get more information directly from the source.
Someone was
Is it
asking
true-
if it's true that students are not allowed to take 2 math classes or 2 science classes. So we ask everybody to choose one of each. And then, so we can go through the scheduling process. And then if there is space and we are able to accommodate a second math or second science, then we certainly allow for that. But it has to be after all students. We want all students that get a chance and opportunity to be able to have a science class. And then if there's space in other science classes, then we can let them select the second one.
But math is typically has a prerequisite, so it's highly unlikely that a student would get 2 mathematics courses, if that makes sense.
Like I had one student who took AP statistics and like AP calculus. So in that case, it can be done, but it's like Ms. Dicey said, it's not typical. The stats about where class of 2023 were enrolled. We usually get about half of the students attending a 4-year college and about the other half attending community colleges.
And then to take a business as major in college, which AP subjects in high school will help the student?
So we do have the not international business, introduction to business class. We have web tech and design class, which all helps. It's part of our business entrepreneurship program. So if students follow that sequence, they will be prepared. It includes also computer graphic design, and then like a capstone class at the end called Economic of Business Ownership.
Okay, so if anybody has a question they want to ask out loud, just kind of raise your hand next to your name and we'll answer a couple more. But it looks like we're going to be ending early. If you do not have any more questions, either in the chat or if you want to ask out loud, go ahead and raise your hand. And I don't see. Oh, we got one more in the chat.
Yeah, so what it says is, so if the student can get at least a B in the AP course, then he should take the AP course than having an A in a regular course. I mean, that would essentially be the equivalent, right? You get 4 points for a B in an AP course and you get 4 points for an A in a regular course. But I mean, realistically, it's important for a student to take an AP class that they're interested in, right? I wouldn't just take a AP class just to take an AP class because it is a pretty rigorous course within a particular subject area. So, and also recognizing to balance those AP classes. So, I mean, enrolling in 5 AP classes or more than that is very unrealistic, particularly if your student has other obligations outside of the school day. So my suggestion is to take a look at everything the student is doing before selecting AP classes and really kind of highlighting an area where your student feels like a little more passionate about that particular subject before selecting an AP class in that area. So something to just consider, kind of based on a lot of the conversations I've had with students in the past few years.
Somebody was asking if science class, if science class can be taken in summer school and if we offer summer school. We usually do not offer science classes in summer. Summer school, there's always more demand of our spaces. So it really is for credit recovery. So students who did not pass a certain class, usually English, math are offered, sometimes world history. So it's really limited, and we don't know what will be offered. We are told kind of towards mid-semester, end of the semester, what courses are taking, but we do meet with students who are credit deficient and make a running list of everything that they need. And so depending on that need, that's what kind of determines what is offered in the summer. So
I'm
it's
going to
hard to
allow
tell
the
what will be
parent, Sean, to ask his question out loud, or their question out loud.
Yes. Yes, thank you. And this is so informative. Thank you all. I just wonder if we're going to get a copy of the presentation with all the resource links.
Yes. It
Yeah,
will be
Miss
posted on our school website under our counseling department.
Under counseling. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And Ms. Davis usually sends out the recordings to the parents on Sundays.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
And most of these are on YouTube too.
And then somebody was asking about AP classes that might help with business. I mean, obviously, like, it depends on what the students' interests are, but ones that I just think of off the top of my head is maybe that AP like economics class, that senior year, Gov Econ might be good for them, English, or even psychology. So those are ones that just off the top of my head, thinking about a business major might be helpful. But again, like I said, just recognizing what your students' interests are and where their passion lies, and thinking about that particular plan. And then somebody else asked about the GPA with the AP lab. So the GPA bump will count for the AP biology course. I think you're talking about biology, or chemistry, whichever one. And then the lab class will count as a regular course here at Piedmont Hills. So a regular, like an A would just count as 4 points, whereas the regular like AP actual bio course counts for the extra bump. So hope that makes sense. They'll get a bump for each semester of that class. And then for the lab, it'll just be a regular unweighted. Hopefully that makes sense.
And then we have one parent, Vidya, with a question. Vidya, you still there? You had your hand raised. Do you have a question? Yes, no?
Yeah. So I think the counselor already answered my question. I put it in the chat. She answered my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then I see a question about the academic plan. So I think you're asking about like the 4-year plan that we complete with the students during the one-on-one. I think that's what you're referring to. So essentially what we do annually, I don't know what grade your particular student is in, but after we go through in the classrooms and discuss like all of the courses that are offered, and we provide the students with their transcripts so they can kind of see exactly where they're at, we basically then have that one-on-one meeting with the student where, again, they should hopefully have kind of done a little bit of work on looking at that paperwork that we went through already in the other presentation that we went in and did. And then essentially at that point, we go through each subject area and update their plan, which all students in Infinite Campus have like a 4-year plan of courses that they're interested in. Of course, that's updated annually, other than the classes that they've selected for the next school year. That really is supposed to be kind of the request, and then they can update that later within that time frame that we allow for. But the 4-year plan we update every single year. So I hope that's answering your question. It's essentially a 4-year plan of coursework throughout their time in high school to meet whatever it is that they are interested in for beyond their time here. And then somebody else asked, can students take community college classes for high school credit? So your student can take a community college class. The only way that we would offer high school credit is if it is specifically a graduation requirement that they need for graduation. If it's beyond grad requirement, they would take it and receive college credit for it, and they can list it on all of their college applications. However, it would not be listed on our transcript. So I hope that makes sense. But it does go through an entire process. It has to get approved through somebody here and signed. But then later when they are applying for college, it is very important for them to submit that specific transcript to their college where they are applying and where they are attending, because that is how they will essentially show that they've completed that class, because it's not going to be listed on our transcript. So I hope that makes sense. Any coursework that a student completes outside of here, a student will have to submit that official transcript to their four-year institution of where they're planning to go. So I think that answered your question. Again, there is going to be information that comes out in a meeting in the spring semester regarding specifically high school courses that students can take like outside of us for the summer. And a lot of that information is about community colleges as well. So it's a summer school information night that'll happen in the spring semester.
So students usually take AP classes. Somebody was asking about AP classes outside of Piedmont. They usually take AP classes at their school site. So if somebody wanted to take an AP class outside of Piedmont, I would assume it would be like an outside school, which at that point then they really couldn't because they're enrolled with us. Like I said, Ms. IC mentioned, they can take community college classes for college credit only. So if your student was interested in that, then they could do that. The recording link for the meeting for last Wednesday, Mr. Rosales, is that in the newsletter?
It should be in the parent newsletter on Sunday.
Okay.
And it should also be on the school's website. But if they're not getting it, I'm directing them to contact our registrar to update. Maybe they're using a different email, or we don't have their email eligible to send to receive our message. So it's either one or the other. They would either have to contact the registrar to find out why, or more than likely we don't have their email correct, or we don't have their email set to receive messages. But there was one up there too that we missed. Describe the difference between ERWC versus English 4.
So English 4 is usually a class that students take after they have taken AP language. And so it's more like literature based, whereas AP English language is more writing. And so if they did not take AP language, though, we would recommend that they take ERWC because it has that writing component that the colleges look for, and it's the college approved class.
And then
It depends on what they took their junior year.
My daughter took a summer class this summer. Does Evergreen forward her grade to PH automatically?
No.
I would have. Evergreen College would be a no, right?
Yeah, they no, that's considered a separate thing. So when your daughter applies to college, she would have to ask for a transcript from Evergreen to include it in her application. And there's a section there where they have to list any community college courses that they have taken, and then at that point they can ask for the transcript and they would have to send it. But that's something that is separate from Piedmont. They would have to request on their own.
Okay. Is that all the questions we have for the counselors today?
I think we have one on AP exams, taking an AP exam without taking the class. There is a self-study process that Ms. Pereira organizes and handles. So if your student was interested in that, he or she would have to communicate with Ms. Pereira in order to be listed in that process, and then get all the information for like the Google Classroom code or the AP Classroom code and everything else that is needed in order to complete that process.
Did we answer the one about can science class be taken in the summer, and does Piedmont offer summer school? We did that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure we got them all.
I think we got them all.
Right?
Let's see.
But if we don't have any more questions for the counselors, I know they are super busy, so I want them to. Can you take 2 classes over the summer?
Usually students only take one because it's so compacted. It's like what, 5 weeks or 5 weeks, I think 6 weeks.
Are they talking about community college or us?
I don't know. I just said 2 classes over the summer. I'm assuming it's with us. And so the first, yeah, it's with us. So the first part, which is like 2 to 3 weeks, they take the first semester, and then the second part is a second semester. So really there only is space for one.
But 2 semesters. So it depends on.
Yes, like a full year over the span of the duration of summer school. So typically students take, somebody asked how many classes can a student take in one year. Usually the average is 6, but students who are like in a magnet program who have to take a certain class to complete their magnet program sometimes take 7. So it just depends on the student situation.
All right.
Right.
We good to go? Do we have any more questions, parents? This has been very informative for me. I hope you guys all got the answers you guys needed. I know there is one presentation next week, right?
Yes,
You
it's
got
for seniors.
okay. So for
So that one
parents,
will go into more detail about senior specific like requirements, deadlines. So
so
we'll see you
so
there.
this Friday is the end of the grading period. That's important to know. Next week there's this presentation. I do not know if Miss Davis is going to be back next week. It could be me again. I'll hopefully have some co-hosts. But I want to thank the counselors for joining us today. You guys all have a wonderful morning. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.